A very warm welcome to all our viewers and attendees. Now, the topic of today's panel discussion is right at the core of what the future of work is shaping out to be, evolving and transforming into. Today's session topic is the future of work is hybrid. So as organizations really plan their return to work strategies, and to discuss what should be the road ahead, we are joined by some of the finest minds in the tech space from India's enterprise as well as startup ecosystem on this panel today. So let me take a few moments to quickly and briefly introduce the panelists who we have with us. We have Mahesh Vandi Chalil, who is the CTO, SVP, Head of Technology at BookMyShow. We have Ranjan Sakalley, who is the Head of Engineering at Vedantu. Rahul Bhargava, Chief Product and Technology Officer at InCred, and Vikram Yerram, who is the Country Manager at GreenLake Cloud Services, HPE. So with that said, just to really set the context and get the ball rolling, it is of course becoming increasingly clear that there's no going back to the pre-pandemic status quo for digital workplace initiatives. We do know that a large number of employees have adjusted successfully to remote working, and many businesses are now looking for new ways to really support this online productivity and really strengthen business resilience with remote capabilities, while also ensuring a safe return to work for on-site employees. So the question really is, what does the future of work look like? The outlines of a new kind of workplace, a hybrid workplace, are really starting to emerge. It is one that supports a fluid as well as distributed and dynamic workforce with anytime, anywhere access to the right tools and data. One that protects the health and safety of on-site employees while also enabling innovative technologies to support social distancing. With that said, I'd like to throw the panel open and begin with a question to all of you, if you can answer that in terms of, what the new normal looks like in your respective organizations and how the team is really poised. So Mahesh, if you can take that up first. We've seen a year gone by. I'm sure remote working is pretty much the norm right now. But what does it really look like at the moment?
Thank you so much. Actually, yes, I think in my simple view, I think it's going to be a hybrid. The mindset has to be flexible. To be honestly, to begin with, being a guy who started with a completely in-person work culture versus when I was in Bank of America 10 years back, 3.5 years I was fully work from home, completely remote, right? From back again from there, right now in the pandemic situation, a complete hybrid workforce, I can clearly tell you that it's all about our mindset more than anything else. What I mean by the mindset is when the people are working remote, if you have the right mindset to actually say, yes, let's actually track the results more than where the employees are working from versus we track their locations and whatnot, that could be actually overcomplicating the things. But in technology, being a technology leader, for me, it's all about the results. For me, it's all about the delivery. For me, it's all about the maximum productivity. If I actually enforce people to come to work every day, knowing that it could be potentially means of 4 hours in travel, right, in traffic, and causing a lot of hiccups for any of the employees, that actually adds a flavor to my mindset. Should I force them, or should I actually just let them to work from wherever they are as long as they deliver? Now, the challenge is going to be the communication aspect. So we'll come back to that aspect. But for me, the future is going to be hybrid. And I think we all have to be flexible enough to adapt to that condition driven by the trust factor to begin with. I'll just leave it for there right now.
Sure. Rahul, would you like to take it from there? Of course, Mahesh, you said that the future is hybrid. That's what you're gearing up for. And it's really the metrics that matters. Doesn't matter where you're really placed. It's the metrics that matter. Rahul, what's it looking like at InCred?
Yeah. So, you asked what is the new normal, and to the extent we can say things are normal right now. But before I talk about the normal, let me just tell you a little about what InCred does. So, see, we are in financial services, and we have two arms. One which is about lending to consumers and small businesses, and other one which is InCred Capital, which focuses on wealth management, asset management. So we are all about 800 people. Headquarters is in Bombay, in BKC. And the entire engineering team sits in Bangalore, with sales offices are spread across the country, right? So before lockdown, People were coming into offices. We had the same tech culture in Bangalore where people could work from home. People would come from some multinational captives where they were used to distributed workforce and work environments. But our salespeople were in offices, and our operations people were in the field. Now, when the lockdown happened last year, we shut down all the offices, right? And especially with Mumbai and Maharashtra being what they were, they did stay shut for a while, and we had to instantly switch the entire company to work from home, right? So not just the tech workers, but our sales people, our operations people, our collections people. And although we deal with money which is a digital good, we're not shipping any boxes, but still you'll be surprised how many physical business processes existed, right? And there has been a trend to go digital in the whole financial services industry for some time. But I think what has happened with the pandemic and the lockdown is that it just accelerated those trends by several years now, right? And that is the new normal we are in. Nobody is going back, right? So just to give simple examples, people used to, we had built digital processes like you could sign an agreement, using an e-sign infrastructure, or sign up for your bank payments through an e-natch mandate, or do your KYC electronically. So all these were there. But at the same time, the fact that we had a sales force also in the field would allow people to actually give a physical natch paper also. And the person was going there to get it signed. Now, with the COVID situation, immediately everything transferred to, right? And now when people saw that and they saw the benefits of it, nobody's going back, right? And I think that has sort of, in the business, become our new normal. Same way on technology side, we optionally people would work from home every now and then. With lockdown being Bangalore, a lot of these tech workers actually went back home and they're working from their native places. And with appropriate communication and everything, we realized that yes, we can make them work. And as Mahesh was saying, focusing on the goals and the projects and deliverables, productivity was fine. And then we realized, okay, we don't necessarily need to hire people who are actually Bangalore residents with certain skills and experience. You could go and actively hire people who don't live in Bangalore, and you can have a more sort of distributed workforce, which was earlier not on the horizon. So these are the kind of things which have become new normal now. We built a very nice office in Whitefield in Bangalore, with a lot of social elements and everything, and it came online during the pandemic. So I'm still waiting for it to be fully used right now, but I don't know if that whole office space thing will go back to the normal.
Right, like the very definition of being at work will change. The office headquarters will cease to exist, so to speak. So hopefully you will be able to really make good that property at some point, Rahul. But Ranjan, speaking about what's going on in Vedantu, your very premise, of course, is online. It's been a year of remote working. If you can tell us about some of the upsides, the benefits, and challenges. People spoke about the fact that the digital transformation has happened, has been accelerated due to COVID. But what are the benefits at one end? Any challenges that you continue to face, or is it pretty much settled? And what is the kind of playbook for success that you really have adopted?
Thanks a lot. I joined Vedantu very late last year. So big part of the pandemic, I was working at a company called Gojek, basically Southeast Asian conglomerate. I worked there as the CTO for the payments arm, and later headed platform. So a lot of experience from there. I'll try to combine both in the answers that I'm giving. But for specifically for Vedantu, I think there's been a lot of acknowledgement, and we kind of seek that acknowledgement that in today's world you could reach and teach people from all kinds of places. And that's basically the premise of our product, right? To be able to teach every child, regardless of where they are, at the same quality and same level as, say, for example, a child in Kota, or Bangalore studies, right? And I think that seeps in through the culture across the board. So if you say there are three big parts of the organization, one is your production side, which is your product engineering design groups. The second is your operations side, which is your whole sales force, and we have a massive one. And the third one is your consumer experience, which is where kids join in classes And I mean, starting from the consumer side, as the lockdown started, I think everybody realized that it's not really so difficult to come online and take classes, right? And honestly, as a parent, I went through some trouble because who wants their 7-year-old kid in front of a computer for 7 hours, 6 hours, right? And that's fundamentally, if you see, one of the biggest problems that we are facing. Nobody talks about it, but being in front of a computer, even when we were at work, uh, we didn't do that, right? We used to take maybe 5-10 minutes off every hour or so. um, but I mean, barring that, I think information flows, interactivity. It's amazing how the world has moved on from a classroom where a teacher could basically see the front benchers, is now able to give attention to almost everybody in the class, right? And the products that we build are actually focusing on giving teachers the right tools to enable that, right? Coming to the sales side, I think digitization, everybody's already talked about it. But I think whatever manual stuff that used to be there is long dead and buried, right? And I think that has been one of the forced changes for many companies. And it's been a welcome change as well, because it brings in its own efficiencies, right? Um and to what I work on, which is the production side, right? On the product engineering, including the HR side. I think the good bit is that we had been championing at Gojek before, which is treat every employee like an adult, right? Not as a child. Uh, I think more and more you will see that people do that, right? So, and that manifests in multiple ways, right? I think Mahesh already mentioned outcome versus output. People behavior change from maybe 10 years back, FMCG kind of a setup where you would count the number of hours a person is in the factory, right? To now where you basically say, let's say you have 2 months, why don't you help us move a number X from 1% to, let's say, 1.5%, right? And that's the outcome that you kind of report on a weekly basis. I mean, we'll come to the communication side of things and all that, but I think fundamentally the efficiencies that come in are good. I think another big and I'm very excited about this. Another big change is how we are hiring, right? And not just about the recruitment process, but where we hire from, right? Again, I mean, we based in Bangalore right now, and people used to choose Bangalore specifically because there was, it's like talent central for software engineering. But now that's not the case, right? And that basically means I can hire anybody from any location in India right now, who and I don't have to force them to move to Bangalore. And that creates an entirely different type of workforce, right? People who are really interested in programming, which is what I work on, right? I want to work with people who are stellar programmers, not people who are incidental programmers, right? And so we are able to choose from the best cost. In fact, if we wouldn't mind to go overseas and hire as well, right? Because it's just the same, right? So at Gojek we had offices in 7 locations. We started 50-50 between Jakarta and Bangalore. Then we quickly started setting up local offices for the same reason that we wanted to have efficiencies. We built an office in Singapore, then Thailand, and so on and so forth, right? And now we are in Gurgaon as well. So having a diverse workforce, of course, enables better product building. And for us, it is really important because we are in a direct consumer-focused business. Almost every engineer who joins us has been through some kind of a tuition or a exam prep, and they bring in their own experiences and enrich our product, right? So the more diverse our workforce is, the better our product is, and it will compound in future, right? Sorry, a
Sure.
bit long-winded answer, but
Sure. So, from what you've said and what the previous panelists have said, of course, we gather that the future is pretty much set in terms of remote work and evolving into a hybrid sort of thing, where you will sort of collaborate between remote work as well as the office setup. The transformation is already happening, and there are lots of benefits, lots of advantages. But the challenge really is, and the core of all of this is a tech which provides the backbone. So Vikram, really bringing it to you then, because being a cloud services company, you are at the core of technology required right now and for the foreseeable future. You've also been extensively working with solving, customer business data and tech problems. So tell us about some of the use cases of work emerging in this new normal and what the year ahead and the past year really looked like for you.
Yeah, thanks, Shivani. I think very insightful comments from the other panelists. And personally, being in sales, I really want to get back in front of the customers because for us it is a bit difficult to push decisions and conclude deals remotely. Still in India, it doesn't work like that. So we really want to sit in front of the customers, have those techno-commercial discussions. With a variety of different personas, whether it is tech or commercial or finance and close. So, but unfortunately, in the pandemic, while we are able to meet some of the customers, but because of customer protocol issues, either they are not meeting visitors or they are not allowing visitors in the office. So that's been quite challenging for us. But thinking from customer point of view, we are working extensively with a diverse set of customers. I am very, very happy to be on this panel. Almost everyone is a startup here. So whether it is startup or very large enterprise customers in very traditional industries like banks or in manufacturing, I think customers have found ways and means of grappling with this pandemic. And definitely the new normal is going to be that they're going to have a very hybrid kind of workforce. And they have found ways and means of working, having somebody work, from office and some work remotely. Definitely in the context of some of the large manufacturing customers, production cannot run without people being in the plant, right? So, some of those critical roles will continue to be on-prem. But from a tech point of view, I think they are really looking at enabling anywhere, anytime kind of work culture. I think that is very, very important. You mentioned this at the beginning of your conversation, the cultural aspect of it. And I think Mahesh also really, articulated very well. Some employees really spend 3-4 hours on the road, and that is a loss of productivity for both the employee and the employer. So I think some of those efficiencies are definitely, seen in some of the, segments of customer businesses. But really, from a technology point of view, customers are really thinking of how do we provide this, remote working environment, which is as secure, as robust, and as available as the office infrastructure. So whether it is your PC or laptop, that is basic itself, the connectivity, then the security. Because now what is happening is some customers are very sensitive. Forget about USB ports or something enabled on your laptop or desktop. They feel that somebody can actually take a picture of your screen, and that is absolute sensitive information for them. So they really don't want that kind of thing. In fact, talking about remote education, my son is in 12th standard, and it's a nightmare to for him to study. And unfortunately, he had joined some coaching class, and because of pandemic, the coaching session is not happening. So he's really grappling between his coaching and his board studies. It's extremely difficult for him to manage. So I think, and then the exams are also now online, proctored exams. You can't look here, there, so some of those challenges are there. And I think what we are trying to do is we are trying to work with customers on a couple of solutions around providing edge-based security, around providing secure media infrastructure, because I think virtual desktops is what customers at least want, whatever environment that is being worked upon to be in the data center and nothing to be on the physical laptop or PC or any other device that the employees are using. So I think really excited about a lot of new initiatives around analytics, around ML ops, because people are finding new ways of doing the same things. Rahul mentioned about the physical aspect of being in fintech. We work with a couple of fintechs, and I'm really surprised the amount of paperwork they themselves have. So I think we are seeing a lot of opportunities around digitization and making automation of systems, to put it that way. I think so. Really exciting times and looking forward.
There are exciting times ahead, Vikram. And of course, you pointed out some of those challenges, essentially, when it comes to connection, communication, and collaboration. I think these three things really need to be smooth and spontaneous to, set the ball rolling for the next level of, future of work. And also on the softer side, at the outset of this conversation, Ranjan, you mentioned that, when you look at the workforce right now, there is also a larger shift towards an increase in the number of contingent workers, the gig economy, so to speak, as well as what we now call the fluid workforce. So how does one really work with time management and trust these new sort of temp workers? How does tech play a role in that? Because you are literally also looking at building virtual community groups to give them a sense of belonging. How are you really dealing with this gig economy, so to speak?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things actually. You could probably write a book around what kind of experiments people are running, not just us, but I mean many other peer companies right now. In terms of, I think baseline, the answer could venture into, for example, branding, how your brand is perceived by your workers, whether it's your permanent employee or your gig worker, and so on and so forth. You could, I mean, my favorite part of this is again moving away from a very prescriptive working model to a more of a result oriented working model, right? And I think there's a lot of precedence of this in the open source world, and I mean that's the world that I really like and admire, and I want to bring it to the workforce, which is where people look at a specific area of work, they want to contribute to it, and then you kind of set parameters around how do you measure productivity. It is agreed upon, and then you venture out, right? And these things are not new. They would basically, in my mind at least, supplemented, or kind of, or rather I should say, they were pushed under the carpet when we were all working in the office, because face-to-face communication actually hides all that, right? You could actually solve many communication issues by just going to the person and talk, right? So if, for example, if I say that the focus for us this year is to bring, let's say, the best video experience to an online class, to a student, that basically means everybody in the organization has to have the same goal, right? Whether it's a salesperson or the academic mentor, the teacher, to the engineer, product manager, everybody. In an office situation, you would just basically, if you mistake that, you could be corrected in a coffee conversation. But now I think it's far harder to hide, incorrect context, miscommunication, and so on and so forth. So the more and more impact has to be towards how do we actually work on better communication techniques, which are going to help us ensure that everybody knows what your mission is and what your goal is, right? And so if you trickle that down from the leadership level down to every employee, regardless of who that person is, how long they've worked with you, this is the same, right? Like you are going to be measured based on what your output is. You're going to be, and that's basically your performance side. As a part of the organization, what we used to do earlier, which is like, for example, Mr. Bhargava said, we had a really nice office, good social spaces. How do we provide that to everybody, right? And that probably means allowing people some budgets for setting up their home offices. Spending that real estate money that we are not spending into maybe bi-monthly or let's say, I mean, that would be too costly, but let's say a couple of months, every couple of months, meet with people over maybe a nice natural resort kind of a place where you could again come together, rebuild that trust, because actually the trust cycle is what gets hurt the most, right? If you are in a remote, I mean, this has been like almost the 20th year for me to work remote, partially remote, I would say. Distributed is probably the word that people used to use. And the trust cycle goes bad in 3 months, right? I mean, that's been the empirical data that I have, right? You meet somebody, you work with them for a week, you go away for 3 months, and after 3 months, you see finger pointing, and that's basically where organizations go to fail. So building that is an extremely important part, and like I said, those things used to get hidden because we were all at work. Now they're not, and it's our job to make sure that we do our best to refresh that trust cycle. We do our best to make sure that we are setting the right uh, communication guidelines across the board, regardless of who the worker is, right? And that obviously includes how do you measure somebody's performance, right? So I mean, fundamentally, I believe that a lot of HR practices have to change as well, right?
Sure.
But I'll probably skip that for the next session.
Yeah. There are so many aspects at play really when it comes to remote working, and it's great to see that you are really making such an effort to think about the entire employee life cycle as well, and what the employees really go through in terms of also, the softer sides of leadership as well, empathy, active listening, and also giving them some sort of autonomy at the end of the day. So that question really, if you can take that forward, Mahesh, we have a Gen Z workforce right now, the millennial generation coming on board. Does this change what is really expected from tech infrastructure, work culture we touched upon, and even when it comes to leadership behavior, how should that really see any kind of transformation with this hybrid workforce in play?
Absolutely, Shivani. I mean, because my out of my 24 years, my 20 years I've been outside. I've been in US 18, 19 years. And, the cultural aspect over there, it's really different, right? I mean, it's all driven by that word trust, and they mean the word trust, right? In India, what I experienced last 3 years is like, not to blame or anything. It's the word trust is one-way traffic, right? I just expect my manager to trust me. I don't have to trust him, right? So whatever I do, he just have to trust me, right? But not the other way. And that is a very big problem for us, right? So that is the number one thing we have to teach and train everyone. What's the power of the word trust? Just simply saying, nobody's trusting me, or my manager is not trusting me, my manager is micromanaging me. All these words are overhyped in India. Okay, the product engineering work culture, it's honestly completely redefined over here for the convenience. So what is mean by the word, the real good work culture need to be indulged from the childhood onwards. What is mean by the word communication? What is mean by the word proactive communication? What is mean by the word over communication? I'll just take a simple example. I was attending the parent teachers meeting with my daughter. She's 16-year-old. And the teachers were just going through her grades and grades and grades. And they just asked me, Mahesh, any feedback? I said, like, honestly, I haven't heard any, grades, whatever you have told me so far. I just want to ask you a simple thing. How is my daughter as a person, right? What are you doing to actually make her a better person, right? I have seen in multiple floors of different companies where without knowing the real power of the word communication, you're just stressing on your talent, technical talent. You're stressing on data structures and algorithms and whatnot. You're not hiring the so-called as the right people. What is that right people? Right people are driven by the intent, the customer obsession, the communication, the power to learn, the power to go and make things happen. If you have these people now, you don't need to manage them. I'm as a leader, I will struggle the moment I need to manage somebody. That's my take. The day I manage somebody, I'm losing as a manager. I am being perceived as a micromanager, right? So I am looking for a workforce where I am being allowed to do what I want to do on a day-to-day basis without thinking about them. What can I do more beyond than what they're doing, right? So my thing is, Shivan, is very simple. Contingent workers. I mean, for example, I am coming from a background of Bank of America, Apple, where we made a lot of money by ourselves by relying on the consulting, background, where the consultants are all remote. How do you actually measure them? You're not seeing them. Yeah. Purely driven by the trust, purely driven by the management of how do you manage them? How do you expect them to deliver the work through the empathy and everything what you provide? So for me, honestly, it doesn't matter where the workforce is. It's depending on how you are actually approaching. So the trust, openness, communication, transparency, if you can maintain, the other side as well understand it. And then right now we are all living in a world of Slack. For me, it's all about create the right channels, put all the corresponding people in each channel, just communicate. Don't wait for somebody to ask you. I'm actually seeing a better world out there, with that. So I'm not worried about whether the person is remote or not, but definitely underlying stuff is start with the basic education from your childhood onwards. Indulge a lot of training stuff, just like you said, effective communication, effective listening, the body language, whatnot. Forget about your technical skills. If you can actually enforce a lot of soft skills training, just like Stanford report said, I will hire somebody 87% based on the domains, not the domain skill, soft skill, and 13% I will worry about the domain skills. If you do that, I don't think there is going to be any issue. So I'll just stop it right there, Shivani. I can just go. But
right, Mahesh, interesting and very pertinent points that you raised there. That trust, of course, is a two-way thing, and a lot of societal norms and how you really look at trust need to be ingrained from childhood as well. And micromanagement, of course, is something that has become a thing of the past when it comes to remote workforce. Autonomy is the way to go. Rahul, if you could take it forward from here, when it comes to tech, we've spoken a lot about soft skills as well. But in terms of what tech can really do, are you looking at, allowing and empowering employees now to make and take data-driven decisions? And do you have that in place at your organization?
Sure, Shivani. Yeah, we could have a social discussion for a very long time. And I think, every generation, whether it's the millennial generation or our generation before it or even prior to it, I think the fundamentals of business haven't changed. Right? People just approach it in a slightly different manner. I always would think that as leaders or even as technology, the goal is to enable people to do what they should be doing. Right? So it should be solving problems. So when it comes to making somebody productive or delivering a business result, right? That is the purpose of technology. Right? We're not running science projects where I do whatever I want to for the sake of my own personal gratification. But as part of businesses, we are leveraging technology to solve problems. So the same thing applies here, that if as a leader, as a technology person, if I can provide technologies for people to be productive in this current environment, then it's worth it, right? So we go into lockdown, are people able to work remotely no matter where they are, as long as they have a good bandwidth connection, the hardware, software, whether we have to use a two-factor authentication for safety, are we balancing the security with the ease of use, right? So any technology I deploy, if it makes people more productive, I think we will get it will be reciprocated by the workers also, right? Because they join a workforce in order to have an impact, right? I mean, obviously to earn a living as well and make money, but that desire to have that impact, I see that more and more in millennials. So I feel like that sort of becomes the role of a manager or the technology. That is it helping me do my job or is it adding a roadblock? And whenever they see a technology which is becoming a roadblock, the adoption goes to zero, right? No matter how well an enterprise salesperson would pitch it, if it is not stacking up to the standards that people have come to expect from a consumer technology, it doesn't fly, right? And that is one of the lessons that the kind of technology we are talking about. I feel if the future of work is hybrid, then maybe something which is like a clean office in a box that you can be productive no matter where you are, that would be a great thing. Today, it still seems very disjointed. Yeah? If I have to log in, then yeah, I have to have a laptop, I have to arrange for a bandwidth connection. I need to find a place which has appropriate lighting. The video call will be another application. The shared communication will be something else. I'll have to use a VPN, two-factor authentication. So it's still quite a bit to get all of this together. And I think if you create it, just like in order to use WhatsApp or in order to book a flight ticket, things have become so much simpler. That is the same level of scrutiny that will be applied to any new technologies coming in this environment.
Sure. Okay, so Rahul, you're basically saying that we need to provide the right tech tools and then measure it to really see if it's converting to increased productivity and efficiency, what the business is really targeting. So that's great because, the need for a solid IT foundation is what everybody is looking for. And Vikram, coming to you on that point, if you can share some of the few best practices for really optimizing a hybrid workforce. What kind of modern tech tools are available out there to improve from here on?
So I think I really agree with what Mahesh, Rahul, and Ranjan said on how they are looking at the various aspects of hybrid, and what based on our interaction with customers, what we are also seeing is the financial aspects of providing this technology. I think it has been a very traditional decision making criteria for customers to build versus buy versus rent and stuff like that. And I think the latest concept is consume. So I think whether it is a Ghana.com or a Uber or Ola, I think people are now got used to the model of consumption. So what we are also seeing is customers and also the financials are not driven just by what is available, but what is required, because customers are also looking at very predictable revenue streams, which have become unpredictable in these difficult times. So having predictable revenue streams is one. And number two, also aligning the cost, with those revenue streams, making the cost more predictable and aligning it with revenue. I think that's been, one of the key things. And I can very well relate with what Mahesh might be thinking. The whole malls are closed, the theaters are closed, so there are no tickets, right? It's as simple as that. And I really admire BookMyShow, the way they started, and I kept watching Paytm also when they started opening booking of tickets, and I think there is very healthy competition among both organizations. But the fact is, there was a revenue stream, right? And virtually all of us virtually booked tickets on the phone or on internet, right? We never went to the counter and bought, or maybe we just took the physical ticket from there. But even that became a mobile ticket. So the whole revenue model changed for the companies, and what were very steady predictable revenues became suddenly very erratic. So I think customers are really thinking optimized investment. I think that is the key thing, and just in time investment. I think that is what they're looking at. So what we are seeing is whether it is a simple implementation like a VDI infrastructure or a network upgrade, or even a large application which could be refreshing your entire server farm or storage, or even your ERP setups. Customers are really looking at very innovative consumption based models, and that is also coming from a lot of competition that people like us are having from the public cloud providers, because of their on demand kind of offerings. So it really put a lot of pressure on us to come with something very compelling for our customers, give them the flexibility, the choice of architecture for their mission critical application, help them have the same level of security that they're used to, and also offer them the flexibility of consuming what they want and pay for what they use. I think that has been something very, very important. And we are seeing across the board, across industries, initially traditional industries had a very conservative approach to something like this. because of a lot of functional people involved in it. Technology was always interested in something like this, but procurement, has a process to follow. So they come with their own, guidelines and rules. And then, finance is always looking at, some of the aspects of, ROI and stuff like that. And, whether they have the cash which needs to go into business or they invest in IT. So I think, those kind of discussions do come up. And I think customers are really thinking about hybrid in all aspects. It is just not about technology or workforce, but really, hybrid in terms of, how you spend your money, or, how do you, project your revenues and costs. I think that has become a very, very important thing. So what is happening is we are seeing our CXOs and CTOs getting more and more financially aware. They're talking some very similar financial language, and that is also making us become more financially aware, have conversations with finance people on convincing them about various aspects of return, and whether what kind of pluses they have if they buy in a certain form. So I think it's been very exciting times for us, and we've been working very, very closely with our customers. And for us, the market is just opening up in a very, very big way, whether it is large enterprise customers across banking, financial services, or manufacturing, or startups. Even small and medium businesses are a huge opportunity for us. It is just that we have finite number of people and resources. So we are also using our extended partner ecosystems to reach out to those customers, and as everybody said, communicate. Customer says, hey, why don't you tell me about this before? So it is just getting the message across to them, I think is a great challenge for us, and which we are working. And through the medium of such events, we want to reach out to a very large base of customers, and tell them that there are some very, very innovative models that HP has to offer under the GreenLake portfolio on consumption based, and it could really accelerate their digital transformation or technology roadmap.
Right. So some great recommendations there for shifting to a hybrid workforce future that you really outlined, Vikram. And interesting that you say that, it's not just the workforce and the nature of work that will become hybrid, but all business processes, business thinking really will become more sort of open and shift to a hybrid model. Rahul, coming back to you in terms of what does the future of work is hybrid look like to you? What would your wish list be with regards to the tech infrastructure you would require to complement this hybrid workforce?
Yeah, so see, I think it is hybrid. I would not say that the physical office goes away, right? I mean, it might look like that we may never go to a physical office, but I think it provides a center of gravity, but it would probably change into not being a 9 to 5 kind of a workplace, but more like a social place where people can get together for interaction. We onboarded lots of new joinees, right? And that interaction, that spirit, that bonding with the company's vision doesn't happen unless there is like some anchor place, right? I think offices will retain that, but that means that the way the offices are laid out will have to change. It shouldn't be just a row of cubicles where everybody comes and sits in their designated spot, but it will have to become a kind of a social hub, right? So the technologies inside that office will have to cater to more of hot desking, right? It could be productive anywhere, not like, your little 4x4 area. So that will be on the office side. And then on the work side, to support the flexibility that we talked about, I would love if a person is as secure and as productive as he would be if he were in physical office, right? So in order to do that, if you can take away all the little things that he has to niggle with today, that'll be the top of my wish list. I mean, we also saw things like just the physical layout at a home, right? Especially for our offices and our employees in Mumbai, where the apartments they don't tend to be that big. And if you, in a family, it's very hard to find a quiet space to have a 1-hour video call, right? And any kind of a soundproof enclosure, the kind of headphones which come with it, or other technologies which will help a person to be productive in any environment, whether they are at their home or traveling, like in Bangalore traffic, I think that is something that would really help. And one other layer which I feel is very, very important in this hybrid workplace is around the security. Right? I mean, we are all dealing with lots of data, sensitive data. And unfortunately, with this kind of a hybrid model, it's an open invitation to a lot of not so scrupulous elements to come in and try to do something bad here. So whatever we do has to have that same level of security. Because earlier in some cases in banks and other places, people would be allowed only in a particular room and then do certain functions. That's not possible in the hybrid workforce. But if you take them out of that room, the same level of security has to go wherever they are. So these would be kind of the few things top of my list for enabling this hybrid workforce.
Sure. And we'll talk about security in just a bit. But before that, Mahesh, if you can also tell us a bit about what are your go-to strategies for engaging and increasing collaboration outputs in hybrid workforce. As Rahul pointed out, company budgets are shifting away from physical workplace to investing more towards empowering employees digitally. So what are your go-to strategies right now?
Absolutely, Shivani. See, definitely the right tool sets are the ones going to make a biggest difference, right? For example, I told you about the Slack and Google Hangouts and whatnot. Definitely those kind of collaboration tools are going to be absolutely spot on. And we are going to be continuously evaluating, are there any better ones, right? Because there are so many different requirements can also start coming on top of the collaboration aspects, right? Which one is a better way to, thread management in terms of the communications and attaching files and whatnot. So all these kind of questions employees are keep asking, right? So that's going to be one aspect. The second is honestly, how much ever we say hybrid workforce or the work from home and the remote workforce, there are so many concerns which employees actually go through, even when they are working from home, even when they want to work from home, like, the space concerns in their home, right? 5 people are in one room and then they still have to work. The kids screaming and yelling, right? There are so many, issues they go through, which they're not able to come to work. They're not able to work from home. Their stress is at a different level altogether, right? They're not able to openly talk about it because there's some kind of shyness associated with it, right? They want to share it in person, with somebody. So there's going to be a lot of counseling and stuff the employer need to put in place so that the employees can reach out and openly talk, right? Which I don't think many companies are doing it. So definitely that kind of like aspects, more than the training, the counseling aspect has to be put in place so that employee stress management can be handled. There are so many other tools and stuff which will be, available anyway. But the biggest thing is like, how do we make, even within a collaboration, remote collaboration, feel like you are in one room? That's where all the VRs and the ARs and then all kind of like reality is going to be, doing in future, how to make it still in person, right? Even when you are working remote. So I'm actually anticipating that in coming months and years, that's going to be the norm where people are going to be remote but still feel like, see, here in India with the startup culture, we are going to be thinking too much about being in person, working in person, or, coming to work. But the global workforce is a norm. How many locations Bank of America has, how many locations JP Morgan has, right? Many of them haven't even seen colleagues each other. I used to remember like in 2003 when I went to IBM office in Austin, I was talking to one of the guys over there and he said he never seen his manager in his 15 years or 18 years of life. The manager never came to Austin office, right? So this is not, I think we are taking it as kind of like the norm, where the problem is that inbuilt, we have this micromanaging culture in us, right? And where even though we talk about the trust and transparency and everything, it doesn't come naturally to us, right? And we have to just come out of it. The moment we come out of that aspects, we don't feel too much about this remote workforce and stuff. I think it's more of like each one of us have to, start adapting to it more than thinking about, how the other person is working. That's my take. Even I have to change. Even I have to adapt to it, right? I have to learn how to manage my people. I have to learn how to learn about them, what they are going through, what are the things they can share and what are the things they cannot share, right? So I am also taking myself through some changes right now, right? So, but that's all I can share right now, Shivani. There are so many tools out there, but my take is right now it's more beyond than tools at the moment.
Right, very candidly put, Mahesh. It involves a whole mindset change as well. And an interesting, important point that you brought up was the mental health of employees as well. Companies will have to invest a lot towards that aspect. And moving on to cybersecurity, which we touched upon very briefly, Vikram, earlier. We are talking about remote workforce, a lot of personal devices now that are out there being put to use. And we've seen that, COVID-19 has triggered an accelerated migration of businesses and infrastructure into the cloud. People have sort of adopted cloud services faster than they had planned. So all of this, of course, means that there are huge security gaps now that have been created. So what are you really doing in terms of managing cybersecurity for your customers?
Very well articulated by Rahul also and Mahesh also. I think it is very difficult for us to provide an environment to the workforce which is working remotely or from home, and that becomes a very very important criteria. As I was telling you, different customers have different perception of data, and for example, whether it is BookMyShow or InCred, they have all the customers personal information, they have their credit card debit card information, right? I mean, it is just not their own security of their organization and their systems, it is the security of their customers data that is very very valuable. And I think, if I look at the different profiles of customers we are dealing, and suddenly, when customers realize that their systems are handling their end customers data, and they become very very sensitive about it. And security is like, any amount of security looks insufficient, because it just the bad guys are just need to be right only once, right? You have to be right maybe every time. And what we are seeing is, in the COVID, a lot of customers have put a lot of their, at least not the so-called mission critical or business critical application into public cloud infrastructure, but whatever is not very critical, or, some of the peripheral applications or UAT dev test environments. What they've also realized is, you are only providing a gateway for people to enter through those, probably less protected systems, because you have put all your critical application behind your DMZs and all. But those are probably exposed, and the customers are the hackers are just waiting to get in. And just reminds me of the Bangladesh Bank episode, where the hackers just stole money from a printer. So that is the level of sophistication they have. And as they say, they are probably 2 levels ahead of all IT people, because it's absolute money thereafter. So what we are doing is, we are offering security as a service to our customers, whether in terms of advisory, looking at what kind of infrastructure they have, what kind of architecture that they build. Because what we've also seen is, some customers, because they had to deal with a situation which is right there, during the pandemic, they had to operate, they had to put systems up, people could not come to office, so they have put up something in the cloud. So whether those workloads are suitable to be put in a public cloud kind of infrastructure, what is the security policy that they have, the posture of their organization, and whether those systems comply, and also offer this holistically as a complete as a service offering. So that whether it is the physical devices or software that the customer need to buy, or the associated services that come with it, the customer can just consume it, and pay on a consumption based model. That is what we've been advocating to our customers, and we've really got some very very encouraging results from our customers. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Okay, so that of course will be a critical aspect that will continue to sort of get eyeballs when it comes to one of the core aspects of backing up your technology with the right security hardware and software as well. Going into closing comments, really, Ranjan, if you could talk about how much of your employee base will continue to work remotely post the pandemic? How is your hybrid work setup looking like right now? Any sort of issues you are facing right at the moment, and how are you really conducting a detailed assessment of the impact on the key metrics when it comes to this hybrid workforce?
I think we'd probably keep it fluid for some time. Again, probably for the next year or so, in the sense that we'll probably not enforce people to come into the office, even if we, even if we see it failing, because I mean, again, employee health is really important. Um, um, I think in terms of how we see, I think Rahul answered it fairly well. Office is going to be the center of gravity always, but there's always going to be some sort of the event or the other, right from planning to social meetups to coding to trainings and stuff like that. Um, I think the kind of instead of looking at it as challenges, I would say we're looking at a world where we want to provide distributed infrastructure to people as well, right? All employees, right from, for example, I mean, pre 2020 it was take a laptop home, but right now we're looking at, how can I buy you a healthier work from home setup, and that's basically what I think. My focus would be in the next coming months. Second, I'm really hoping that this changes the gender ratio. There's a lot of women out there who can work in a remote setup far more comfortable compared to, let's say, coming to the office, competing with people who are willing to stay till very late, and not just women, but for example, people like me who have kids, right? uh, can't spend after like 6:30 in the evening. You would want to spend time at home. uh, how can we actually provide a workplace where everybody is welcome to look at outcome rather than output, right? So there are forces on both sides, but how can we actually look at this as an opportunity? Like I said, hiring remote um, is another option for us, and we are looking at it actively. Um, and I think fundamentally, what the way I see it is, people who will adapt and excel at communicating well and building workplaces that allow people to effectively solve problems with passion and intent will compound their benefits and be the clear winners, regardless of where they are there, whether they're in enterprise or in products, because forcing people to come to the office is definitely not an option, right? I think the other thing that I think all of us probably did not talk a lot about was knowledge sharing in conferences like we are on right now, right? And again, pre 2020, you would have to maybe take a flight to another city. If you did not have a company sponsorship, you would have to pay for flight tickets from, let's say, Gurgaon to Bangalore to come to a Your Story conference. But now people can actually, do that online, right? And maybe spend a little bit less money, have recordings to watch, uh, have communication channels on those talks and stuff like that. And that's very, very valuable for a workforce, which again, people, because we were not forced into a situation we did not really think about, right? So again, just to recap, I would say I'm hoping that more and more women join the workforce, because it's not, you have to go through 2 hours of traffic and in an unsafe environment, stay till very late, compete with people you know who are spending more time at work or going to office parties, and in creating parallel communication channels over there. These have been traditionally called out as policies that work against women and marginalized workforces. So hoping that goes away, hoping that organizations like ours focus on how can we build workplaces for people to be more productive, and finally, how can we all be more communicative, and in terms of knowledge sharing across the board, right? Not just within our organizations but outside.
Sure. Okay, I think Ranjan, you pretty much summed it really well there, and we've covered all the aspects. And all of you tech leaders, of course, have your work cut out for you. Exciting times ahead. With that, I think we'll conclude. We have, of course, established that the hybrid model offers huge advantages for businesses and their employees. And this, of course, will prove to be a long-term sustainable model, providing flexibility for their employees and giving organizations more resilience and agility. At the end of the day, the key challenges, of course, are communication and collaboration, which will have to be met with the tech service providers and companies such as GreenLake Cloud Services, HPE. Of course, Vikram outlined a lot of the services that they provide and the tech infrastructure backbone that they are working on to provide for their customers. Huge implications for the way we work going forward, and what being at work really means will come into question, because the office, of course, will no longer be the main headquarters or the main arena of work, but instead it could prove to be a more welcoming hub for the fluid as well as gig economy to gather for face-to-face meetings and employee bonding at the end of the day, while the key business functions and more productive work environment can be built elsewhere and anywhere, so to speak. So thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time, and of course all the pertinent points that you raised. Thanks again.